This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap. Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen. We are, as always, glad you are here. This is season 8. This will be episode number 15, and you have found the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2026 Belgian GP Preview as F1 does its version of a spa day. That's a bad joke, and we're off and running. You've got Andy. I'm along with Cody tonight. Besides my bad humor, Cody, how's it hanging?
Oh, it's going pretty well. Life is kind of back to normal for me now. There's no big vacation. There's no crazy work going on yet. It's super hot here again in the Midwest, so that part kind of sucks. But apparently Belgium is just as toasty, and looking forward to the weekend to cool off just like we are. Yeah,
I mean, the heat that we were avoiding that was definitely in Europe has now come across over here. So we are in full July mode. It was very hot today. It's going to be very hot tomorrow. It's going to be probably hot after that. So why not kick back, cool off, keep the shades drawn, and watch some F1 early in the morning. So I think that's a plan. And that's what we're going to do. But you have found our show. Thank you once again for listening and welcome along. Like I said, as always, we're glad you're here. You can find us on X, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and of course here on YouTube. Outlap F1 podcast is the handle for all that. If you enjoy what you're seeing, and because we're recording a little early, I might be able to do a video for this one, and you enjoy what you're hearing, do us a solid, click the like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. What are we doing good? What could we improve on? I do enjoy all of the comments. You guys have been stepping up in that regard, and that helps our algorithm a little bit out. So appreciate all of that. If you're on your favorite podcasting app, Apple Podcasts or Spotify are two of the big ones. We're also on a whole bunch of other ones, but a 5-star review on either of those will also help our show come up a little bit better in F1 related search results. You can email the show, outlapf1@gmail.com. Thank you so much for Outlap F1 Nation, who continues to step up. Thank you so much to Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, Jonathan Scott, Rachel Fleming, Dave Doherty, and Brandon Bowler, who have all stepped up and supported the show with our it's not buy us a coffee, it's buymeacoffee.com/outlapf1 link, which we will put in our show notes. If you are inclined to help us out a little bit, we would be most grateful of it. We will shout you out at the beginning of every episode and be eternally grateful to you if you'd like to do that. We are in the European season. We need coffee to wake up at sometimes very odd hours, especially if you are an F2 or F3 watcher like I am. It's a little crazy. You literally spend half your day up and then try to sleep off and then get ready to podcast at night. But it's the life we've chosen to lead here. Let's put it that way. Again, the link is buymeacoffee.com/outlapf1 if you'd like to do that. All right. Well, we had a week off. I can honestly say at this point, there's been no driver movement. So we're not putting that in our news. We're not talking about that. There's been lots and lots and lots of theories. Some of it was downright, all I'm going to say is, again, the same thing that I always say about this type of stuff. Trust your actual sources. There's a lot of weird AI models of drivers in different race suits going all over the place, and some of them make absolutely no sense. And again, watch your trusted sources. I'd also say avoid Facebook for news, because that's where it seems the worst of it is residing, at least from what I can see. For once, it's not Twitter, it's Facebook, man. It's just some weird stuff going on.
It all makes me think of that meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's like pointing back at the map with all the pins and string going across it.
Yeah, I mean, but we are in kind of that season. We're in that season of there really wasn't a whole lot going on. We had a week off. If you were in England, you had the Goodwood Festival of Speed, and there were lots of F1 people there. That, I think Cody and I have decided, is on our bucket list. We're going to try to make a way to do that before we all kick the bucket here, because that looks like an amazing time. And if you were there and enjoyed yourself, send us a picture or two of what you got. We will definitely share it for you as well. All right, so zooming in on the Spa-Francorchamps weekend as F1 continues its European swing. First story on the docket involves my boys at McLaren. They are at long last, and they could have taken it the last race. They chose not to. Are going to receive the latest spec of Mercedes engine for the Belgian GP weekend. They are also trying to now bring back, I do think we may actually see it this time. They sound a whole lot more confident in the Macarena wing concept, which will at least give me something to watch for practice on Friday. Of course, with my luck, it'll be completely rained out and they won't trial it at all, and they'll give them an excuse to defer it another week. But anyway, yeah, it's nice to see them getting the right hardware. They're not going to have to take an engine penalty, which is important for them. It's part of just kind of how the season was going to shake out. Each team was kind of doing their engine deployments a little bit differently. I don't suspect there was any skullduggery involved or anything like that. But Cody, what's your thought on this?
Yeah, I don't think it was anything crazy. It's probably McLaren's decision because they probably weren't ready to try out the new spec of the engine. And my understanding too is that this latest upgrade wasn't even for, or this latest version of the engine is not even improved in so much of a performance way as it is a reliability way. You would think that McLaren would want to jump on that real quick because they've had reliability issues. Mercedes has had reliability issues. Been a lot of problems with the engine, so you would think they would have wanted to get that ASAP. But now they did put it off until this race, and I believe they are the last of the Mercedes supplied teams to be using this latest spec of the engine.
Yeah, I mean, they did confirm both drivers will get the new engine. My guess is they will probably put it in on Saturday. So even if their Friday running is probably going to be on the old spec engine, but they will then cycle that one in. Whether or not they run it for the rest of the weekend, I don't know. I can't imagine why they wouldn't, especially if it's got more reliability in it and new set of mileage. So yeah, I mean, let's hope that it brings some performance. They are definitely looking at trying for ways to improve the car. I think their next big update package is not going to be here so much as in Hungary is where they said before the summer break, and then they want to try to use the post-summer break. They may bring some more parts to Zandvoort as we resume after the break to try to get themselves back kind of into the fight. They're definitely third or fourth quickest right at the moment. They're not where they want to be. They've admitted that, and hopefully this can be the start of something. Although I'm going into this weekend with my expectations kind of tapered, especially given what we saw in Great Britain. Anyway, next story on our docket. What is it? The Mad Ring Circuit? That's what they're calling it. The Mad Ring Circuit.
The Madring.
The Madring. Okay, I need to learn how to pronounce it. The Madrid Street Course, which is being built, and I've seen shots of the infrastructure and stuff like that. It's definitely looking like it's coming together, and it's now had its first F1 car run around it, and that has been a red car. It was a Ferrari. They were allowed 200 km of testing around that Madrid circuit on July 9th. I saw some video of it. It's an F1 car going around a circuit. Hard to tell really what that circuit's going to look like yet. But Cody, did you take anything from that?
I think it's interesting that, Ferrari is using this opportunity to try to get to a new circuit before anyone else. And, I guess that must mean that the circuit itself is in a drivable state. I don't know how much everything else is ready to go for the circuit, but at least they can drive around it. And I do think it's an interesting tactic for them to try to go there and get whatever data they can on this course, trying to take whatever advantage they can, I suppose. I got to wonder if the fact that, nobody really knows anything about this circuit just yet, I got to wonder if maybe it would have been better to test out at a track that, people might actually have some kind of advantage on you. I don't know. It was an interesting choice, but it gives them a little bit to work with. At least 200 kilometers is 200 kilometers.
Yeah, I mean, it's running is running, and obviously, I think the thing that they're going to get if they're trying to get an advantage out of anything here, it's going to be in the initial maybe engine mapping. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what they do. That race is scheduled to be September 11th through the 13th is the weekend. It is after Italy. It is now going to be the last of the European races before the second set of flyaways. So it comes at an interesting part in the calendar. It's definitely going to be a different track to I mean, we're going to go from extremes to extreme to extreme. We're going to go from Zandvoort, which is going to be energy rich. It's probably going to look the closest thing like these regulations are supposed to look like. And then we're going to go from there to Italy, which is going to look in exactly the opposite direction. Energy starved, cars dying on the straight, Italians all going crazy. And then we're going to go to a street circuit, which we have no idea what that looks like. And from what the initial layout, it's very twisty, not a huge long amount of straights. So it's kind of an oddity. I don't necessarily know. And then we go from that to Azerbaijan, which is going to be energy starved again, which is the other track that I worry about energy starvation, probably is more even than Monza when you think about that, especially that long straight.
Yeah, that one straight is what the longest straight that they have on the calendar, right?
Right. So, we're going to put these cars through their paces. Let's put it that way, but especially right after the break. But yeah, I think Ferrari is probably like the only advantage I could see. One, you're not going to be able to run at full speed. They're not running flat out. Is to just kind of get an initial thought of what the braking pressures might look like, what some of the initial engine mapping might look like, whether that can give a competitive of enough advantage. I mean, when you're talking tenths of a second in qualifying, maybe it's a thing. So interesting that they used it there, that they didn't use it to develop their car in other ways, given all the updates that they've had. But they're obviously pretty confident in what they've got, at least at the moment. All right. So moving on to our next story. We've been complaining about these engines basically since Jump. Lots of fans have been complaining about these engines since Jump. Mohammed Ben Sulayem has a working television and has all of the power that he has. God only knows how he got it all. We kind of talked about that story. But he has a vision. He has a vision for what Formula One is going to look like in the next rule set, and he has put some of that out there for public consumption. Cody, you put the story in here. I'll let you kind of introduce it. What's he saying?
Yeah, I guess so. Mohammed Ben Sulayem has thrown out some ideas for what he thinks are items that could be considered for the next rule set. A lot of it involves actually bringing back old rules. One of the things that we're looking at here is bringing back V8s, not V10s this time. We're talking about bringing V8s, which to me is actually a bit more realistic. Still talking about how exactly the full power unit is going to shape up, whether it's going to be naturally aspirated or turbocharged or have still have an electric component and how big that'll be. But the V8s was definitely something that was talked about. Now, if you're moving back toward, mostly gas-driven power, and you're doing V8s, which are, notoriously more gas guzzling than, a V6, you're going to have more fuel in the car, and that's going to make the car heavier and potentially slower or less agile. So there's also been talk about bringing refueling back, which to me is kind of the strangest one of the bunch. And then the last thing that I really heard being tossed around was maybe even seeing if Formula One could rope in an independent engine manufacturer, so not someone who makes really production vehicles or production parts, looking at something like Cosworth that is, more in the business of making high performance racing engines that you're not going to be selling to the general public and all that stuff. So trying to get someone who doesn't make their own cars into the sport so that supplier could potentially sell, to independent teams. So those independent teams, say like McLaren, don't have to go around to all the different engine manufacturers and say, who will give me the best deal for the best performance. And then, I guess part of the argument that was made here is this would serve to have less manufacturer influence in Formula One, a la, have Mercedes selling their engines to McLaren and then saying, oh, by the way, on this next meeting, could you vote this way, please? Kind of holding them by the balls there with their engine deal. I kind of see how that last part could be an interesting idea. And to me, the more suppliers in the sport, the better, is how I think about it. Not necessarily like manufacturer level, like Mercedes or something like that, but just more people you can get parts from in the sport. I think that's a good idea. I do think it's really interesting that this is what Mohammed Ben Sulayem is sporting now as the flavor of the day, because I'm pretty sure a really big component in giving all of the engine manufacturers what they wanted going into these regulations for the sake of getting a couple more into the sport, like Audi and Cadillac, which we're all really excited about. But, the engine regulations kind of had to bend over backwards to make those manufacturers happy and come into the sport. And now we've got, shit engines. So we've gone from, oh yeah, let's do everything the manufacturers want so they come join the sport and increase the value of the sport, to, wow, this racing really sucks. Manufacturers should have less of a say in all of this. It's like a really quick 180 after realizing that maybe mistakes were made.
Yeah, it's definitely a 180, but there is one thing he has here that he didn't have when he was talking about the 2026 regs. His hands were tied because he had 10 and 11 teams all signed on to a Concord agreement that gave them, the teams, a lot of say in what Formula One was going to look like. That Concord agreement expires at the end of this reg set, which is 26, 27, 28. So at the end of 28, we need a new Concord agreement or whatever it is going to be, 31, or I forget at some point the Concord is going to expire. This is what he wants to do post that. If I'm getting the year wrong, I apologize for that. But he's basically laying out to say, well, if you want to race on the FIA or Formula One World Championship, this is kind of the vision as to what we want to have our racing look like. In terms of V8s, yes, sign me up for that. I am in favor of that. I would be in favor of an electrical component that would be something like what IndyCar does with push to pass, where it would be a battery that's available. I would rather harken back to the KERS days, but make it more powerful so that a car going into a corner has an opportunity to pull off and overtake. I'm okay with that. I read the thing about refueling. And this comes up when people have visions about Formula One. And take it from somebody who has been around long enough to remember what Formula One looked like when they refueled. If you want to watch an overtake on track, good luck in a refueling era. Because what you're going to find is everyone is going to be going out there doing fuel save runs to try to get and pick up that extra pit stop. I was talking with Cody in the pre-show a little bit about what NASCAR has learned and can't unlearn when they talk about their super speedway package. And this is when they run at Daytona and Talladega. They put a restrictor plate on the engine to restrict the maximum power that the engine can produce. And what teams have learned was, well, hey, if in the first two parts of the race we mega fuel save, we can save a whole pit stop at the end, and therefore the aggregate time is faster than the other way. Your same thing is going to happen in Formula One, and you're going to see cars riding around. They're all going to be going at 80%. It's like watching the first 10 laps of a Singapore race. Remember how everybody hates that, where they're going 2 and 3 seconds, 7 seconds slower than what they're doing? That's what you're going to get with refueling, because everyone's going to learn. All these engineers, which are they're probably as smart, if not smarter, than the guys in NASCAR. No offense to the guys in NASCAR. You got to be really smart to do that too. I'm not trying to disparage anybody. It's all number crunching. But what they're going to learn is, hey, we can save a fuel stop if we do this and ride around and fuel save. Like they already kind of have to do, even without refueling. Nobody likes to hear lift and coast. Nobody likes to hear that stuff. You're going to hear it twice as much more as you do in a refueling era. So you're going to bring back V8s with power and loudness and noise and ability to push, and then you're going to take it away from them by bringing in refueling. Bad idea. Just please get rid of this idea. Stop talking about it. I don't think I'm going to win this argument, though, but I don't know. We'll see. As far as the independent manufacturer goes, it's an interesting idea if you can get this spec of engine back to where we kind of were in 2025, where everybody was kind of locked in on performance and we were just really talking about reliability issues. That's when this comes in. The question is, even if you offer it, who's really going to be in a position to take it? Now, it may be some teams that you might not be thinking of. the natural people gravitate, I think, to McLaren because they've been the one non-works team that's kind of been in that top group, even this year. But I don't think that that's going to be where they want to go. They actually like their relationship with Mercedes for the most part, other than when Mercedes does something that they weren't aware of, and then they have to find out a week later. But that's part of this rule set. So take that and put that to the side. If you take that and go back, they were perfectly happy with their customer engines from Mercedes. They didn't really say anything negative about them. Would McLaren want to go make its own engine or buy something like this? I think if you bought from this, I think the idea would be that you're settling, and all of these teams are going to be looking for that specific works team advantage to push the issue, push performance all the way to the end. I don't know that you're going to get that with an independent supplier who's just trying to be there. So it's a good idea in theory. I just don't know how it's going to execute.
I think that idea would kind of work better if you had teams that were kind of more, like the older independent teams that were kind of just trying to go around the track and be there. I think this would be a good option for teams like that. But in a good way, we're kind of have Formula One to a point where you don't really have teams like that anymore. Right. Even your lower budget, lower spending teams like Haas still can be quite competitive on their day. So you don't really have any of these super shitty. Well, I mean, you got Aston Martin right now, but they're not trying to be that way.
Right.
You don't have really these teams that are finishing the race like several laps down, minutes behind the leaders. You have a competitive field, and that competitive field is, like you said, going to be looking for every advantage they can get, and would probably be looking at that independent engine supplier as something you have to settle for if you can't get an agreement that you want, or you can't afford what you want.
Right. I like I said, I think it's it's an idea that 15 years ago I would have been a proponent of, when we had engines that we kind of knew and we kind of knew where their performance was. You don't know what you're going to get in terms of performance because you're going to let manufacturers redevelop a V8. Well, we know where it's going to start from, but what are they going to be able to do? And then does it come in? And we didn't have the same sophisticated software like we did before, where it can optimize and make that V8 work to its theoretical limit where it might not have been before. And the other part of an independent engine supplier is that's almost antithetical to what you're saying your DNA of Formula One is. You're saying your DNA of Formula One is, we want the fastest cars, the best drivers, and the engineering challenge. Well, you've now taken a lot of that engineering challenge and a lot of talent that's been dependent on that engineering challenge and kind of putting it on the shelf and kind of saying, well, you're not really needed now. And I have a hard time thinking that a lot of the grid is going to want to go for it. I think it's a nice thing to have on offer, but it'd be interesting to see who would take it, if anybody would take it. But yeah, that's kind of my thought on the MBS vision of the future. This is obviously a very preliminary set. There's not a whole lot of detail in it. It's one of those stories that I think will come more into focus the closer we get to those new rules. And in true F1 fashion, everyone is going to wait until the last possible minute before agreeing on anything. And then they will probably change half of what we thought they were going to agree on. So we'll continue to monitor this. It is a story that I do want to get back to if there's a possibility there, but we'll monitor it. But it definitely looks like the V8s are coming. It's just a question of how we're going to get there. All right. Well, let's focus in a little bit on our Belgian GP. Our track facts brought to us by the good folks at Pirelli Motorsport. I think I have sound cued for this. We're going to find out in a minute if this actually plays. So, Cody, tell us about the Circuit Spa-Francorchamps.
All right. This week in Formula One heads to Belgium to race around the Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, located in Stavelot, Belgium. Number of laps for the Grand Prix is 44 laps. And the length of the circuit, I believe, is the longest F1 has on offer at 7.004 kilometers. That's 4.35 miles. And it consists of 19 turns. The tire selection from Pirelli has been announced, and that is a C2 for the hard, C3 for medium, and C4 for soft as their tire compounds. However, I've been looking around. We're doing this a day early, and I have not seen this year's Pirelli track packs come out yet. So we're going to give you last year's. I imagine they won't be that different. Last year, we had a 4 out of 5 for traction, 3 out of 5 for asphalt grip, 3 out of 5 for asphalt abrasion, 3 out of 5 for track evolution, a 5 out of 5 for tire stress, a 4 out of 5 for braking, a 5 out of 5 for lateral load, and 2 out of 5 for downforce. The qualifying lap record under the current configuration of the circuit, I'm going to go to Lando Norris, who set the current lap time in 2025 with a 1 minute 40.562. I was kind of having fun looking at this time because you go back the past bunch of years and you really think they would have gone faster by now.
Because it's been
so many wet sessions. Yeah. So really, the last record is from 2020. They probably should have beaten it a couple of years ago, but it took all the way up until last year to get there. So they actually, I think Lando Norris beat the old record by like 3/4 of a second or something big like that. But anyway, Lando holds that record. The race lap record, you have to go 1 year prior. That was set by Sergio Perez in 2024 with a 1 minute 44.701 seconds. Most wins around Belgium is going to go to Michael Schumacher with a whopping 6 wins here. However, Ayrton Senna and Lewis Hamilton both have 5 wins right behind him. And then Jim Clark and Kimi Räikkönen are in third with 4 wins. As you can see, there's a lot of greats who have succeeded at this circuit. And then fourth place is a 4-way tie for 3 wins apiece between Juan Manuel Fangio, Damon Hill, Sebastian Vettel, and Max Verstappen. A lot of very stacked names here on that list. Most constructor wins is going to be Ferrari with 18. McLaren did notch 1 up last year, so they're up to 15. And then third place is a tie between Lotus and Mercedes with 8 wins each. Fourth place, Alfa Romeo. And it's going way back to the original Alfa Romeo. And Williams with 4 wins apiece. What's the circuit like, Andy?
Yeah, interesting. McLaren is number 2 here because this is the modern era, at least in the last couple of rule sets. It's been a McLaren house of pain. That's all I remember, other than last year. It hasn't gone well, but maybe luck turns around for us this weekend. But Spa is among Formula One drivers' most beloved tracks, with its mix of long straights and challenging fast corners, allowing them to push their cars to the edge of their capabilities. That is if it is dry. The size of the track and the nature of the Belgian weather means it can sometimes be raining in one part and bone dry on another, meaning grip can vary from one corner to the next. Keep an eye on the thrilling Eau Rouge, arguably the most famous sequence of corners in the world, as the drivers flick left, right, and up the hill through a Raidillon. As for that Belgian weather, and we expect it to be a factor, it's already the forecast has already changed a bit from what we initially thought. Friday practice day looks like it's going to be rainy. Rain showers early with some sunshine later in the day, a high of around 75. Winds out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10, a 60% chance of rain. For the weekend, this has improved a bit from our earlier outlook. Saturday looks like to be a few clouds early, otherwise mainly sunny, a high of 71. Winds out of the northwest at 10 to 15. So the wind is going to pick up a bit, so that could be a factor as well. A 22% chance of rain, never count it out here. And for Sunday, partly cloudy skies, a high of 68. Winds out of the northwest at 10 to 15, so still pretty windy. A scanter 12% chance of rain for Sunday. All right. Yeah, just looking at the track, we've got, 1, 2, 3, 5 straight modes. I think they're trying everything they can to nurse these cars through some of these corners. I would expect super clipping at the end of the Camel Straight. I would expect it coming down the hill in that second straight mode zone through turn 16 up until the bus stop. These cars are going to be dying.
Yeah. I was reading that the amount of time that you were on full flat out throttle at Belgium is one of the highest circuits on the calendar. So yeah, they're going to be pushing these power units to their limit. They're going to be running out of juice a good chunk of the way before they get to the braking zone. So all of that pain that we saw when we were watching Australia, where we were really seeing the worst of the super clipping, probably going to see that here, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can't imagine a more challenging layout for this set of cars than what
Mm.
you've got here. Especially the start of the lap, you get one hairpin to do a little bit of regen, and then it's basically flat out deployment. And if you use all your deployment, you've got nothing for the second sector. So we're gonna have to see kind of how these cars and how the drivers choose to do it. It's not a sprint weekend, so you are gonna get 3 practice sessions, which is, in my opinion, probably a good thing. I wouldn't want a sprint weekend trying to figure out these cars at this track. So yeah, we're just gonna kind of run with it. Don't get too annoyed. This is gonna be an extreme part of it. Um, just gonna kind of have to kind of suck it up and bear it. But enjoy the show. Again, what I do think the other side of this is gonna be is you may see overtakes in places that you traditionally had never seen overtakes, particularly maybe even in that second sector, where if somebody's done some interesting deployment and caught a draft and did some interesting things maybe with their straighter versus corner mode, you may see some squirting of throttle, some boost deployment or something like that in a spot that you might not normally have seen it. So that's what I'm hoping for. In the good thing, but yeah, I think the qualifying is going to be rough, and I think it's going to be significantly slower. Um, but anyway, what do we think is going to happen? We're going to take a quick break. We will re-rack. We'll come back. We'll tell you what we think is going to happen. We do have some slower lap times on the board for sure. We'll tell you when and where to find your Formula One over the course of the weekend. So come on back. You will not want to miss it.
You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, welcome back on in, everybody. This is Season 8, Episode number 15 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2026 Belgian GP Preview show. Yes, we remembered how to do a preview show. You've got Andy. I'm along with Cody tonight, and we just talked about some of the more recent news. We talked about MBS's vision for the future. We then did our track facts and kind of set up the weekend. And now we're going to tell you what we think may actually happen with the cars on the track over the course of the weekend. It's our prediction segment. We're going to dive in as we are apt to do. We start with the pole sitter. That 2025 pole sitter was Lando Norris, who did set the track record. I don't think we're going to see that one fall. I think that one is pretty safe. But Cody, who do you have doing the getting pole position here, and what's your lap time?
I think it's going to be Kimi Antonelli. I think that's kind of, in my mind, a bit of a no-doubter on this one. Antonelli has generally had the measure in qualifying over George, and everything that we've seen is that the Mercedes engine has the best ability for recharge and power deployment, and that is going to be really important at this circuit. So I think they're probably going to be actually pretty far out in front of everybody else. And I've got Kimi Antonelli doing it with a still much slower than last year, 1 minute 42.634 seconds.
All right, very good. I'm going to go in a different direction, and I'm going to tell you why. You wouldn't think I would pick a Ferrari here, but I'm going to pick a Ferrari here, and I'm going to pick Lewis Hamilton here, and I'll tell you why. Because I think that chassis is by far the most efficient chassis on the grid, and there are enough twisty bits here to where I think that's going to matter and maybe overcome some of the engine stuff that they have. Their engine situation is not all that much more poor. They did have that update that did bring them a little bit closer, at least we hope. And I think Lewis Hamilton is kind of in the zone, and this is a track that kind of speaks to how he wants to drive a car. Yeah, it's going to be engine starved, so getting it in and out and being efficient in the corners, I think is going to help him. I think Kimi Antonelli is a strong contender for pole. I'm not saying that he's not, but I think Lewis takes it by ever that little bit. And I've got a slower lap time than what you've got. You got a 142.6. I've got a 143.187. All right, so turning over to the race on Sunday, who do we think is going to stand on the podium? Last year's podium was Oscar Piastri, P1, Lando Norris, P2, and Charles Leclerc in P3. I think it's going to be a bit of a different podium, but Cody, what you got?
Yeah, how much changes in a year? I would be honestly very surprised if there was a McLaren on the podium this time out, and that is considering that we had a McLaren almost win a race at the beginning of the season. So times change quickly. This year, I've got Antonelli coming home with the win, Russell in second for Mercedes 1-2, and then Charles Leclerc continuing his improved form and wrapping up the race in third again.
All right, very good. I think this might just be one of those Lewis Hamilton weekends. Harkens back to even some of his old McLaren days. He always goes really well around this track. Let's not forget, he was the winner of the George Russell DQ race. He was named winner of that even in the Mercedes in 2024. So I do think if Lewis is on it and that Ferrari is on it, like it looked like it could be for spots in Britain, maybe we have something similar happen here. That said, I don't think Kimi Antonelli is going to be that far behind. I do think he will come home in second, and I do have Charles Leclerc, again, coming home in third. I got a funny feeling this may be one of those George Russell not-so-great weekends. All right, so moving on to our fastest driver, one lap in the race and their lap time. I'll go first with this one. I do have Mercedes here. I've got Kimi Antonelli setting it. I've got a 147.595 for my lap time. Cody, what you got?
I've got the other Mercedes driver doing it, George Russell, and very slightly faster than your time, 1 minute 47.332 seconds.
All right, very good. So we're pretty close in our race pace lap time, so we shall see who prevails there. For bonus picks, we've selected P4, P6, and P8, so this is a good challenge a little bit further down from the podium. Cody, what you got here?
I don't have quite as much confidence in Lewis Hamilton this weekend as you do. Actually, I have Lewis Hamilton coming in fourth. Got Lando Norris sliding into sixth place, and Isaac Hadjar essentially being the last of the four fast teams.
All right, very good. I'm going to pick Oscar Piastri to finish P4 because the last couple of races, McLaren have kind of scrapped their way into that position. I'm hoping that's kind of more of a hope than a prediction there, but I can dream, right? Isaac Hadjar, I think, will continue his solid form in the Red Bull. I've got him coming home in P6. And it seems like if there's one in the top six who's in the top eight who's not there, it's been a Racing Bull who's been there to replace them. So I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to say I don't think this is George Russell's weekend. So I'm going to have Arvid Lindblad coming in and taking P8 on the day here. All right. So for our prop bet, I liked how you put this down to just Friday. So that's interesting. Do we see the wet weather tires on Friday? And do we have cars actually run on them? That I think is the question, because we really haven't seen that. We've had some wetter sessions, but I don't think anyone's been really running out there with them yet on the cars. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. I do think the Belgian weather will come out at some point and do what it does. And I think Friday's the best candidate of days to have that happen. And let's hope that we see some running in the wet, because I think it'll be interesting to see kind of who adapts to what and what they do, because we haven't really seen it. Cody, what you got?
I also put yes. I did think it was kind of pretty up in the air, because first you got to get enough rain on the track at the right time to put them on. And then how many teams are going to say, yeah, we really want to collect this data right now at Spa, which is probably not the best place to run your wet tires on a new regulation for the first time. I honestly think that there's a pretty good chance that if that happens, there's a lot of teams that say, hell with it, or we'll just wait for it to dry up a little bit. But I went ahead and said yes anyway, so we'll see.
Yeah, we shall see. It'll make some interesting. Give me an excuse to watch both sessions on Friday, for sure. And when and where can you watch your F1 this weekend? If you're in the U.S., is Apple TV or F1 TV. You need to have an Apple TV subscription in order to get F1 TV. So start there would be my recommendation to you. When can you watch it? FP1 kicks off Friday morning, 7:30 a.m. Eastern. FP2 Friday at 10 or 11 a.m. Eastern. FP3 kicks off Saturday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern, so 5:30 a.m. For me here. Qualifying kicks off Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. These are pretty much the standard European times, with the race on Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern time. All right. Well, let's hope that this isn't as bad as we're all thinking it's going to be. Let's go in with a positive attitude. Maybe it's better. Maybe we see overtakes in places that we don't always have before. I think sometimes you got to have kind of that mindset. Let's hope the race is super entertaining. There's lots of overtaking, and maybe we get a crazy race without any rain. That's what I think the goal would be. So, Cody, any other thoughts before we close on out?
Yeah, I think we could be in for a decent race despite our worries about the engine performance here, because really, realistically, a lot of people like Spa because it's really pretty and it's iconic and it's cool watching cars go through Radion and Eau Rouge and then, down the straight and everything like that. That's a lot of what people like here. For being honest, it's probably been pretty good number of years since we had like a true banger of a race at Spa. So really mixing up the regs and having lower reliability and all this weird super clipping might actually make things more interesting, honestly. So I'm trying to stay optimistic.
Well, we shall see. The weekend awaits. We will be back on Sunday to recap the good, the bad, and maybe some of the ugly. So yeah, we're going to ride this roller coaster along with you guys. Like I said, we'll be back on Sunday, so catch us then for that. Until then, stay safe out there. It's a crazy world. And as always, folks, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at outlapf1 podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.